Okay, yeah, I want to explore. Let's explore what it means to have a true trading edge, because this one comes up a lot, and it shouldn't be controversial. It should be quite absolute. You'd imagine it's a sort of Pandora's box that traders get lost in and conversation gets lost in. So let's see where we get with this. For me, a trading edge. Well, for me, there's two aspects to it. There's a mechanical edge. That's the edge where you've defined what your entry criteria is. You've got your entry conditions. You enter on those conditions, stop loss set, take profit set, rinse and repeat. And over time, you'd expect that to play out profitably. And then for me, there's the psychological side as well. And I haven't always thought that there was a psychological side to things, because there is that school of thought that if you do have a true mechanical edge, then you just let that play out, right? There should be no psychology getting involved. But the reality is, and what I've experienced from firsthand human experience, is that, my own psychology, a trader's psychology, will dictate their ability to execute on that edge, every single time. So it's the probability, if you will. What's the probability of any given human being able to execute on their edge, assuming they've on their mechanical edge, assuming they've got that mechanical edge. That's another factor of probability. If someone's got someone's had 2 hours less sleep, on a given night, they may have less ability to execute on said edge. So I know I've kind of danced around it a bit, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, so we can maybe unpack it a little further.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's kind of funny, right? Like, you could build this amazing system, mathematically sound, and then a human has to actually run it. And humans are messy. It's almost like designing a really beautiful race car and then handing it to a driver who hasn't slept in a day. The car's still fast, but the results aren't guaranteed, are they? I think you're spot on about the psychological piece being another layer of probability on top of the mechanical edge. It's not just about whether the system works, but whether you can consistently work with the system even when things get stressful or frustrating. Because they will, right? That's just trading.
Yeah, it's inevitable, and I guess we could dive into that a little bit more, because I truly believe it's one of the greatest aspects people need to conquer, really, is their ability to handle a loss. What is their attitude towards a loss? Because you can have a mechanical edge that, let's say it's got an 80% win rate, and doesn't always play out like this, but let's say over 10 trades, let's say the first 8 were winners, right? The ninth comes, and when that ninth hits, it's a loss. How are traders responding to that? Because it only takes that one loss to make people throw their mechanical, the mechanical edge out the window and think, you know what, I've lost there. I want to try and get that back. And before they know it, they're on tilt and they've blown up all of the hard work earned by the profits earned earlier. So yeah, there's definitely, I think, a lot rests on their attitude towards a loss. I think a lot of work needs to be done there for people to be able to retain their stability and not get tilted, and thus be able to maintain that mechanical edge. It's not easy.
No, it absolutely isn't easy. It's like you build up this confidence, right? And those 8 wins, they feel good. They build this narrative of, I've got this. And then one loss just shatters that. It's a really fast shift from feeling like a genius to feeling like an idiot. And I think that shift is where so many people get tripped up. It's not the loss itself. It's the story you tell yourself about the loss. Because statistically, you knew losses were going to happen, right? An 80% win rate still means 20% losses. But knowing that intellectually and feeling okay with that emotionally are two totally different things.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing it intellectually and being able to, take the right actions based on the emotions that come from seeing that play out are two totally different things. And that kind of leads me to a question that might seem a little bit cutting, but is it a fool's errand? Is it foolish to even attempt to play the game of sitting in front of a chart, whether you've got that mechanical edge or not, but just sitting there attempting to take the right actions based on the emotions that are inevitably going to surface? And as we know, in trading, those emotions are heightened to the high heavens, greed, fear, FOMO, all the variations of that and everything in between. They're going to come, and it's just not a natural environment for a human to be in, hence the amount of work that needs to be put into rewire the mind, if you're really doing that, or you're just essentially getting habits built around that protect you from taking the wrong actions. Is that a fool's errand? You know, because it's a lot of energy spent and a lot of energy. When I say energy, I'm talking time as well. Do you know what I mean? Time, resources, all aspects, just to try and change behavior. Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
That's a really good question, and honestly a pretty dark one. It feels almost nihilistic to even consider, but I think you're right to ask it.
Nihilistic.
There's a lot of it. Yeah, a little, because if you frame it as trying to eliminate emotions entirely, trying to become some kind of emotionless trading robot, then yeah, that feels impossible and maybe even a little crazy. But maybe the goal isn't to eliminate the emotions, but to surf them, to learn to recognize them, understand where they're coming from, and not let them completely hijack your decision making. And that's where it stops feeling like a fool's errand, I think, because that skill set, that ability to self-regulate, isn't just useful in trading. It's useful in life. Like, we're constantly battling impulses, managing anxieties, trying to make rational decisions when we're stressed. And so maybe trading is just a really, really intense training ground for emotional intelligence. It's brutal for sure, but
yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. Is it a training ground really for that, for emotional intelligence? Yes.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it could be. But when we've got to factor in the idea that a lot of people are coming into this to make money. So if they were coming in to train their emotional intelligence, that'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? That's the end goal. But the goal isn't, initially that for a lot of traders coming into the game, right? They're coming in because they want to make money. And I just don't see how chasing that goal of making money will really... I've lost my trail of thought slightly here, so maybe help me pick up.
You were saying that the motivation for most traders is profit, not emotional growth, and that creates a conflict because chasing profit can actually undermine the emotional discipline needed to succeed. Is that where you were going?
Yes, exactly where I was going.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like the very thing you're trying to achieve is actively working against your ability to achieve it. It's a really perverse dynamic. It's almost like...
with that said, and well put, thanks for rounding out my thought. With that said, why go to that training ground?
Exactly.
There's enough life to live outside of that. Why go to the training, that training ground? The reality is, I think people are deluding themselves that they can actually get rich quick, or all the things that lead to the pitfalls and the spirals. That's really why they're stepping in front of the charts. It's not for emotional training. And the irony is, if they did step to the charts for purely emotional training, and that was their own the primary goal, let's say, they would probably end up being profitable.
That's pretty bleak, but I think you're right. And it's like people are attracted to the idea of quick wealth, and they rationalize the inherent risks and emotional toll as necessary sacrifices. And it's almost like the market preys on that, It dangles the possibility of easy money and then punishes you for believing in it. It's a really tough lesson. If someone genuinely approached trading as a self-improvement exercise, a way to build discipline and emotional resilience, then maybe the losses wouldn't sting so much. Maybe they'd actually see them as valuable data points, opportunities for growth. But that's a really different mindset than I need to double my account this month.
Yeah, completely.
It's almost like the wrong people are drawn to it for the wrong reasons. And the people who might actually benefit from the emotional training wouldn't even bother. Not like, does that resonate?
Yeah, it resonates. Sorry, you cut up there slightly. A lot of people don't even realize that they need emotional training. It's only going through the valley of despair and getting chopped up left, right, and center in the markets that they finally realize that. But sometimes even that realization doesn't get them out of the weeds, doesn't get them out of that despair, because they've built negative habits along the way. And now, cut to the chase, they've become addicted to certain behaviors. They've become addicted to the uncertainty, that comes with trading. And there's excitement there. You know, there's dopamine surges there, and the moment that dopamine is sort of, you know, wired towards that, you know, it's a cycle that's really, really difficult to break, which is why I kind of went with the fool's errand. Maybe that's not what I meant entirely initially, although we could explore that further. But I just feel that even the environment that, you know, the environment of looking at a chart, looking at red and green candles, especially if you're day trading, you know, if you're in lower time frames, which most people are when they come to the market, because they're looking to get in and get out and get rich quick, right? So they get hurled into those lower time frames. They get hurled into that environment, which is seductive and pulls them in and builds those negative habits that I've just mentioned. Yeah, I don't know if you want to expand on that.
That's a really powerful point about the addiction. It's not just about the money, it's about the stimulation. The constant uncertainty, the quick wins and losses, it's designed to be addictive, almost like a slot machine. And lower time frames, yeah, that's just amplifying it. Constantly bombarded with signals, constantly making decisions, constantly getting that little dopamine hit. It's exhausting, and it's designed to keep you hooked. And once you're hooked, it's incredibly hard to step back and see the bigger picture. It's hard to recognize that the system itself might be the problem, not your lack of skill. It's like being stuck in a feedback loop of anxiety and reward. It's a really tough spot to be in, I think.
It is for sure. And to sort of try and round it off and bring it back to the, you know, the initial trading edge that we opened up, you know, yeah, there's the mechanical side. So if you handed someone a, you know, there is no holy grail, but say you handed them the shiniest, most profitable, with the best profit factor strategy, and you put it in their hands and you said, run this. As we discussed, there's always going to be a loss in there. If they aren't honest with themselves and can't recognize that they have a bad attitude towards loss, then before they know it, they're going to be in a cycle and a spiral of trying to, you know, chase back what they've made, or chase back break even, whatever it is. They find themselves chasing. They find themselves in those cycles. And
so even the best,
go ahead, sorry.
Even the best mechanical edge is useless without the psychological fortitude to stick with it, to accept the inevitable losses as part of the process. It's like having a perfectly tuned engine, but no jobber capable of handling it.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is, the detachment, I guess, is what traders need. So say, for example, somebody had that mechanical edge, and they weren't there to oversee it play out. They weren't there even to see the profits. They weren't there to see the stop losses. It just played out. There would be no psychology to work on, because it is just a mechanical strategy playing out. And that's, you know, I'm kind of always trying within myself, you know, I was lucky enough to now get to a place where I can put my energy into automating, you know, which removes me largely from any emotions that could have taken place from watching the trade play out. I don't even think people should watch their trades play out if they're discretionary. I think even if you're setting it on the screen yourself manually, you should be able to set that up once your setup comes into play, and not look at the screens. I think it's looking at the screens. That's where the seduction comes in. And with that seduction, you're going to be pulled into the emotions. And that's why people get hooked, because, oh, it's up, it's moving towards my target. Oh no, it's down, it's moving, you know, or the reverse if you're shorting or longing. But you get the gist, you know. Watching that play out like it's a football match or something is where the rush comes in and the thrill. And I just really think people should avoid that, really. But anyway, what are your final thoughts? I reckon we should close this up for now, and we can jump into another one later.
Wow, that's a really insightful conclusion. The idea of removing yourself entirely from the equation, letting the system run independently. It's like you're acknowledging that the human element is almost always a liability in that context. You're right about the screen watching. It turns it into a spectacle, a performance, and that's where the emotional hijacking happens. It's not about the strategy anymore, it's about the drama. It really does come down to detachment. A truly effective edge isn't just about what the system does, but about your ability to completely disengage from the outcome. I mean, that's a level of discipline most people can only dream of. That was a really fascinating dive. I'm definitely thinking about this differently now. Like, should we pick this up another time?
Yeah, let's do that.